It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, live from Los Angeles. Incompetent. President-elect Donald Trump lays into fire officials in California, and the governor hits back.
That mis and disinformation, I don't think advantages or aids any of us. Responding to Donald Trump's insults, we would spend another month.
Flames lick the celebrity enclave of Brentwood, with officials warning tonight the strengthening winds are making the fire threat very high.
Also ahead this evening, the anti-corruption minister embroiled in a row about corruption. Calls tonight for Tulip Siddiq to lose her job. She says she's done nothing wrong. Plus, West Bank shooting. Sky News analyses CCTV showing a Palestinian grandmother shot in an IDF raid. The UN calls it a potential war crime. IVF with AI. We investigate how artificial intelligence might help boost the chances of a successful pregnancy. Killed in the line of duty, a North Yorkshire police officer dies in a road collision after stopping to help a driver. Her force says she was the best of British policing. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages. That's in our press preview from 10:30.
Hello, good evening from Los Angeles and the Pacific Palisades. Fires have burned here for nearly a week now and eating their way through the bone-dry land. But as the death toll rises to 16 and countless more people are left homeless, so too a blame game is taking hold among those in power dealing with the crisis. Tonight, in a war of words between the President-elect Donald Trump and the Governor of California. All that as officials warn of a very high fire threat as the weather and winds worsen. Well, the massive effort to contain the fire includes 1,354 fire engines, 84 aircraft and more than 14,000 personnel, including newly arrived firefighters from Mexico and Canada. Fires continue to burn across the city. Emergency services have managed to get a grip on some of the blazes, but the two largest fires, Palisades and Eaton, continue to burn largely out of control. Evacuation zones have expanded today, particularly around the Palisades fire as it pushes towards wealthy residential neighbourhoods and some of the city's famous landmarks. The celebrity enclave of Brentwood is being threatened by the fire, home to celebrities including the actor Dennis Quaid, Vice President Kamala Harris, basketball player LeBron James and Arnold Schwarzenegger. And its northern front has forced evacuations in the upscale neighbourhood of Calabasas, home to many members of the Kardashian family. Tonight, the Duchess of Sussex has delayed the release of her Netflix series to focus on the needs of those impacted by the wildfires. David Blevins reports now from Los Angeles.
They are desperate for hope, but the people and communities displaced by wildfires have lost everything.
It's my home church. It's my everything church.
Another congregation opened its doors to Altadena Community Church.
We're still finding out where people fled to. And so a chance to get together. It's a long drive out, but it's worth it because we need hugs. We need hugs.
The feeling of losing my church, the building is gone, it hasn't really sunk in yet.
So where do you find hope? Where does a person of faith find hope in the midst of this?
God.
1 in 3 members no longer has a home. Reverend Paul Tellstrom feels the weight of that.
We just have to get up tomorrow morning and start forward and make it happen all over. And I know people are tired. I mean, one of the difficult things is that I announced my retirement on Sunday, and then the church burned to the ground on Tuesday. How do you tell people it's going to be okay? But you know what? It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. We will do this.
A community coming together, politicians divided. President-elect Donald Trump posting on his own Truth Social platform. The fires are still raging in LA. The incompetent Poles have no idea how to put them out. Thousands of magnificent houses are gone and many more will soon be lost. There is death all over the place. This is one of the worst catastrophes in the history of our country. They just can't put out the fires. What's wrong with them? Criticism rejected by the Californian governor.
Well, I called for him to come out, take a look for himself. We want to do it in the spirit of an open hand, not a closed fist. He's the president-elect. I respect the office. I don't know what he's referring to when he talks about the Delta smelt in reservoirs. The reservoirs are completely full, the state reservoirs here in Southern California. That mis and disinformation, I don't think advantages or aids any of us.
It's an unrelenting battle. Fires still raging across Los Angeles. And looters continue to take advantage of evacuated homes. One of them arrested, dressed as a firefighter. Reinforcements have arrived from Mexico. Fire crews on the ground are exhausted, attempting to save life and property.
Today, strong north to northeast winds gusts are up to 50 miles per hour with low humidity will be observed. A red flag warning is in effect and will remain until 6 p.m. Wednesday evening. Strong Santa Ana winds are also expected to last through Wednesday, with the strongest winds occurring on Tuesday.
There's a real heart attachment to places of worship where these people have marked the milestones of their lives. But churches, mosques and synagogues also serve as community centres in these neighbourhoods where people come when they need help. And they're gone. They're watching and waiting in hope that the worst has passed. But with warnings that the wind could strengthen again into the middle of the week, all they can do is pray.
And David joins us now from Altadena. David, as you so eloquently mentioned in your piece, a community there where everybody is coming together. But when you look at what the politicians are doing, there's deep discord.
Yes, and what a vivid reminder, as if we needed one, of just how deeply polarised America is when it comes to politics. Here we are in California dealing with some of the worst wildfires in the history of Los Angeles, and we have this war of words raging between the president-elect and the Californian governor. And think about that in the context of people coming to places like this and finding that the only thing remaining of their homes is a chimney breast. People not able to go to their usual church today because it has been razed to the ground by the wildfires. People who are literally struggling now to figure out how they're going to rebuild their lives. We're hearing trademark bluntness, of course, from Donald Trump, but the Democrats are choosing their words very carefully. You heard the governor say he was issuing an invitation to the president-elect to come and see the devastation with an open hand, not a closed fist. And the LA mayor says she's having very positive conversations with the incoming Trump administration. The reason for that tone is that while there has been federal assistance offered by President Biden, they know any appeal for further assistance is going to land on the desk of the man who will again be president in a week's time.
David, thanks so much for that. We're just waiting for the wind to pick up further. That is what is forecast over the next couple of days, and people here are just really praying that it takes the fire out to sea and certainly not further inland. I'll hand you back now to Anna Botting in the studio with more of today's news.
Jane, thank you. There are calls for the anti-corruption minister to lose her job tonight over allegations about properties linked to her aunt's political movement in Bangladesh. Tulip Siddique says she's done nothing wrong, but a cabinet minister who spoke to Sky News suggested she could lose her government job if an investigation finds she's broken the rules. Our political correspondent Rob Powell has more.
The government's anti-corruption minister now embroiled in a row about corruption in Bangladesh. Re-elected in her London constituency last year, Tulip Siddique and some members of her family have come under suspicion. A standards inquiry is underway in Westminster, this cabinet minister suggesting she'll be sacked if rules have been broken.
She has referred herself straight away to this. There is a process underway, and we know full well it will be a functional process, and the outcomes of it will be stuck to by the Prime Minister and this government, a complete contrast to what we've had in the past.
The allegations centre on links between Tulip Siddique and political allies of her aunt, the former Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina. Ms Siddique currently rents a £2 million house in North London, owned by a businessman with reported links to Sheikh Hasina's Awami League party. She also owns a flat in central London that the Financial Times reports was gifted to her by an ally of her aunt. And she was registered as living at another London property that was transferred to her sister in 2009 by a lawyer who has represented Sheikh Hasina's government. It's alleged that Tulip Siddiq lived in several London properties, such as this one in the centre of the capital, that were at one point owned by allies of Sheikh Hasina's government. That government fell last summer amid deadly protests, and allegations of crime and corruption have followed. Bangladesh's new leader, the Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus, has said an official inquiry in his country should include the properties linked to Tulip Siddiq. The Conservatives say she has to go.
She is the anti-corruption minister. She has serious charges laid against her now, or serious accusations that around corruption. And it's going to be really impossible for her to do that job under current circumstances.
Tulip Siddiq was supposed to be here this weekend on a trade trip to China with the Chancellor, but she stayed in the UK amid the Standards inquiry. Tulip Siddiq has strongly denied any wrongdoing and played down any links to her aunt's political party. But some in Labour have pointed to her previous comments expressing support for the Awami League and questioned why Downing Street didn't see this row coming and why it's being allowed to rumble on. This former advisor to Jeremy Corbyn says Tulip Siddiq's closeness to the Prime Minister may be a reason why she's still in post.
There's been a consistent approach from Keir Starmer, which is if anybody on the left even puts half a foot wrong, they're out. If anybody, more on his own part of the party, crosses the line, they're given a bit of leniency. And we've seen the same thing play out here, I think. But this is different. They're in government now, and people expect high standards of ministers.
An ally of the Prime Minister, Tulip Siddiq hopes and believes she will be cleared by the Standards inquiry. But there's no guarantee that will limit the political damage now being done, both to her and her party. Rob Powell, Sky News in Westminster.
Well, our chief political correspondent, John Craig, is in Westminster and joins me live for more on this. And indeed, there are more questions tonight, John.
There are two new developments which rather undermine Tulip Siddiq's claims, attempts to distance herself from her aunt, that's Sheikh Hasina, and claims that she never discussed politics with her. First, Sky News has uncovered blog posts written by Tulip Siddiq before she was a Member of Parliament in which she boasted about her links to her aunt, who became Prime Minister but was deposed in August last year. First of all, she talks about she posts a photo. Here's an action shot of me with the Prime Minister at a press conference. She talks of travelling with Sheikh Hasina in her car on election day. She took photos from inside the car. She talks about how her aunt won a landslide and she was ecstatic. Secondly, The Times is reporting that Tulip Siddiq's election leaflets, flyers, were found in the palace in the Bangladesh capital Dhaka of the deposed Bangladesh leader. Labour Party flyers were found in the rubble of the palace in Dhaka that belonged to the Labour MP's aunt, Sheikh Hasina, that The Times is reporting. It says at the top of a staircase were items produced by Siddiq. One was a thank you note to local Labour Party members following her election as MP for Hampstead and Kilburn. Another was her annual report for 2022, inviting readers to learn about her help for those affected by the cost of living crisis. More pressure on Tulip Siddiq, and of course the calls for Sir Keir Starmer to sack her will now intensify.
John, in Westminster, thank you. Sky News analysis of CCTV footage reveals what appears to be Israeli military personnel using a vehicle marked as an ambulance during a raid in the West Bank in which an 80-year-old Palestinian woman was shot. The UN has described the incident as a potential war crime. The IDF said in response that they operate in accordance with international law. Her family have asked for the footage to be released and have been speaking to Sky's Yusra El-Bakhir. And a warning, her report includes CCTV of the moment that grandmother Halima Abulel was shot.
On December 19th, an elderly Palestinian woman was shot in these streets of the West Bank. 8-year-old grandmother Halima Abulel was shot in an IDF raid as she went to buy groceries near her home in Balata refugee camp. Back then, we spoke to her family to understand how Halima lost her life.
6 shots at an elderly woman.
Now, Grainy CCTV footage has emerged showing the moment she was shot. Sky News has verified the video and analysed it against our interviews with Halima's family in the street where the shooting took place. Her family want the world to see it.
She came to buy groceries. She walked out and they fired at her.
This is what we know. We located the market street where the CCTV video was filmed. In the footage, we can see Halima walking here. There are also 3 men walking down the street. Based on an analysis of their silhouettes, the figure in the middle appears to be holding a weapon and is likely to be a militant. The 3 men veer to the right, moving into this sunny area. One takes a seat while the other 2 stand. They join someone sitting there already. A few yards away, Halima stops to speak to another woman with a shopping trolley. A marked ambulance pulls into vision, separating the 2 women, and drives slowly down the street. We can see a white van that appears to be in a convoy with the medical vehicle. Both vehicles stop. Seconds later, the passenger door of the white van opens, and faint clouds of smoke can be seen, suggesting a gunshot is fired. Halima has fallen to the ground. The men sitting over to the right disperse to the right and to the left. Through close examination of the footage, it appears that the clouds of smoke are from gunshots. During our visit to the site of the attack, we saw bullet holes in the building next to where Halima was standing. The woman she was speaking to moments earlier ducks for cover in a doorway. Halima fully collapses as she appears to be hit again. The men likely to be militants are not visible in the street when this happens. At the same time, figures who appear to be IDF personnel exit the ambulance in the foreground. The silhouette of the figures exiting the ambulance van suggests they are Israeli military forces. Video analysis reveals that armed figures can also be seen leaving the white van and aiming their weapons down the street. The IDF previously told Sky News they conducted counter-terrorism activity in Balata camp the morning Halima was shot. We approached the IDF about the CCTV footage and the use of a medical vehicle to conduct this operation in contravention of the Geneva Convention. This is what they said. The IDF is committed to and operates in accordance with international law. The mentioned incident is under review. The review will examine the use of the vehicle shown in the video and the claims of harm to uninvolved individuals during the exchange of fire between the terrorists and our forces. Experts say that the use of a medical vehicle may constitute a war crime. And the UN says the absence of protections for an identifiable civilian, in this case Halima, could be an extrajudicial killing.
When I look at the footage, what emerges prima facie is that there were no precautions taken to avoid within these operations, which I say whose legality is utterly debatable, no precautions taken to spare civilian life, and not principle of proportionality, because there was wildfire directed at the identified target, and ultimately no respect for the principle of distinction. So this was a murder in cold blood, and it could be an act, a war crime, as an extrajudicial killing.
The IDF's surprise raid on Balata camp may have broken fundamental rules of war. Yusra al-Bagher, Sky News.
Now, for many people who want to be parents but who can't conceive naturally, IVF is seen as a path of hope if they can afford the considerable costs, of course. But it's still a numbers game with no guarantee of success, even with multiple rounds, and can be a long and painful journey for many. Now, though, there are hopes that the use of AI technology can help to boost the chances of a more successful round of IVF. Sky's Rachel Venables went to one clinic that's been trying it out.
This tiny collection of cryogenically frozen cells contains someone's enormous hopes for a child. But this North London IVF clinic thinks those chances for a family are improved with their use of artificial intelligence through the IVF process.
So this lab has AI integrated into all aspects of lab techniques which are needed,
including using AI to select suitable sperm, eggs and embryos.
You can see a score A on a sperm, B and C.
So the A-grade sperm, that's the one you want to be selecting for IVF?
Yes, yes. So that is what is going to lead to that successful and healthy outcomes.
Laura used the avenues for the final part of her IVF journey. She says the use of AI is exciting, But so much more needs to change to make it accessible for all.
It's all well and good involving the use of AI to yield the best results for women. It can reduce the financial burden, although IVF is extremely costly for most people. If you can get first-time results, fantastic. But I think that the larger issue here is women being denied help based on really discriminatory factors such as just being single.
According to the most recent data, around 52,500 patients had IVF treatment across the UK in 2022. But success rates are low and varied. Average IVF birth rates were 35% for women aged 18 to 34, dropping to just 5% for women between the ages of 43 and 44 when using their own eggs. And one cycle of IVF can cost £5,000 or more. It's hoped that as the technology improves, so will the cost and outcomes for patients.
I think AI has huge potential to transform IVF treatment, and I think it will inevitably lead to improvements in success rates, especially as the computing power improves. Certainly it can make it more efficient, more cheaper, potentially moving forwards. But yes, it's early days. We need to prove a lot of these things before rolling them out. So I think that's really important. It's fine to have a theory that this is going to help, but it's important to demonstrate that and make sure everything is optimized before we roll it out.
As the world grapples with the many risks of AI, the rewards too seem inevitable. Rachel Venables, Sky News in North London.
She's been described as the best of British policing, that the tribute from the police force of an officer killed in the line of duty while trying to help another motorist at the scene of a crash. Fraser Maud reports now from North Yorkshire.
Flowers for a fallen colleague. Police officers at the scene of a collision in which PC Rosie Pryor was killed. The off-duty response officer had stopped to offer help at the scene of a collision between two cars. As she spoke to one of the drivers on the verge of the A19, 41-year-old Ryan Welford, an HGV struck them and killed them both. Colleagues paid tribute to PC Pryor, who'd only been with North Yorkshire Police since joining as a student officer in 2022.
Rosie epitomises the very best of British policing. She put the safety of others before her own safety. As I say, North Yorkshire Police is absolutely devastated at her loss.
PC Pryor's family have described her as a loving mum, wife, daughter, sister and auntie who'll be deeply missed. Mr Welford's family issued a statement saying Ryan was a hard-working and loving father, husband, son and brother. He'll be greatly missed by his family and friends.
The driver of the HGV involved in the incident, a 65-year-old man from Berwick-upon-Tweed, was arrested on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving and has since been released under investigation. Meanwhile, a teenage passenger in Mr Welford's car who was injured in the original collision remains in hospital in a serious but stable condition.
Further searches of the scene were carried out on Sunday morning. Meanwhile, North Yorkshire Police is asking for anyone who may have seen or captured the incident on dashcam to come forward as it continues to investigate the deaths of a member of the public and a fellow officer. Fraser Maud, Sky News, Thirsk.
A man has been arrested on suspicion of attempted murder after a woman believed to be a nurse was stabbed in the Royal Oldham Hospital's A&E department. The victim, aged in her 50s, suffered life-changing injuries and remains seriously ill in hospital. An NHS hospital in North London is advertising for a nurse to care for patients in its corridors. With flu, COVID, norovirus and RSV straining resources, hospitals are running out of room. Whittington Health NHS Trust, which oversees the hospital, stresses that this is a last resort to ensure safe care during these extreme pressures. 3 people have been killed after an avalanche hit a group of 5 skiers in Italy's northern Piedmont region. The 2 survivors have been airlifted to hospital. An alert had been issued in the area above 2,000 metres, warning of considerable danger of avalanches. Preparations are underway to host millions of Hindu visitors in the northern Indian city of Prayagraj. Nearly 400 million people are expected to participate in the Mahakumbh Mela, which is one of the most sacred pilgrimage events for Hindus and is celebrated only once every 12 years. Well, back here, and as farmers prepare to hold more protests this coming week over the government's plans for inheritance tax, there's been a surprise intervention from one of the big supermarkets backing them. Sky's Dan Whitehead has more.
A year of protest, but the farmers' fight goes on. In the latest battle against inheritance tax changes, supermarket Morrison's has come out against the government's plans.
We share your concerns about the long-term future the inheritance tax is going to have on farms, particularly smaller family farms, and we know that you want something done about it. We've been raising these concerns at the highest levels of government since November last year, and we will continue to do so. We know it's important. We are with you. We're here to help you.
The intervention by a major supermarket is the latest attack on Labour's policy. The change will see farms worth more than £1 million liable for 20% inheritance tax from April next year.
So milk 350 dairy cows here.
Wiltshire dairy farmer Max welcomes the support, but says it must be more than just a video on social media. Whether it's Morrison's or another supermarket, those words have got to be backed up with actions, haven't they?
Absolutely, yes. And I think that we need to call out the retailers a bit on this as well, because great, come out with the words, and Morrison's do have a background and a history, association with farming, but it's great to see them taking a lead on this. But equally, as farmers, the retail supply chain has put us under pressure, and so this needs to be more than just calling out on the inheritance tax.
Experts say this is as much about supermarkets protecting their own business as well as the farms that supply them.
The whole investment, the whole business is built around supplying quality food. Morrison's has worked very hard with the farming community to do that, and I think they're starting to understand that supply chain, that all the investment they've made is at risk. And it is no surprise to me at all that, yes, I think they care about the farmers, but I think they care about their own business as well.
The campaign against inheritance tax changes will continue this year. In fact, next Friday, there are plans for farmers to park their tractors outside supermarkets across the country as they continue to urge the government to back down. A government spokesperson told Sky News its commitment to farmers remains steadfast. The reform to agricultural and business property relief, it says, is fair and balanced. Not true, say farmers who are pushing to scrap a policy they think could harm them long term. Dan Whitehead, Sky News in Chippenham, Wiltshire.
Let's catch up with the latest sport now. Here's Mike.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
I'm striving to find out how our Games Academy system works. I've heard from the very best managers.
20 years ago, if you had talent, you could be at the top, but now it's not enough.
I've heard from the very best players.
You get your first contract when you're 8, 9, year on year you're fighting for a contract.
I've heard from those who've had their dreams shattered.
I'm so out of love with it, I don't want to be here.
Coming up in this episode, I'll find out exactly how the system works.
The 2 biggest periods of success in Manchester United's history have been driven by young academy players.
The way we do things may be slightly different, predominantly because we've been doing it longer than anyone else. Our youth program's 90 years old, and we're trying to build a program that sees the boys reach their full potential. Ultimately, the utopia is we want to support players to go and play in our first team, and we've been brilliant at that over the years.
The relationship that the academy have with the first team, with the manager, with the director of football, chief executive, how close is that, Nick?
Youth development is the centre of this football club because of Matt Busby, because of Sir Alex, because of Munich, because of the Champions Leagues that we won. The youth sat at the heart of it. It's a way of life.
The 2 biggest periods of success in Manchester United's history have been driven by young academy players. It's everywhere you walk when you come into the club. Yeah, that's the biggest thing I always had from the manager, was that He believed in me.
Yeah.
So he helped you, he guided you, you know.
Sky Business sponsors this report.
Here in Los Angeles, residents are preparing for the winds to worsen as the fires continue to burn. All week, we've been talking to people who lost their homes, their everything. We'll end Sky News at 10 with their stories.
As you can see, there's nothing left. I don't want to leave. It's home. So I really can't put into words.
We each walked out with 2 pairs of clothing changes, and that's all that we have.
Everything that we know and love is gone. Not just this house, my whole city gone, man. The whole thing, like everything, my whole neighborhood, everything that I grew up to love and know is burnt up.
We didn't think it was going to come this fast. It jumped over a whole park, and then it came here. It jumped over whole streets, and it hit this community.
All my best friends have lost their homes, but, you know, they're alive.
Everybody here, it's not easy. Each one is an individual neighbor, so this is my dearest friend, Gayleen, who I've known for my whole life, 35 years. That was our clubhouse where we play pool every Friday. That was Ben's house. These are like my closest friends here.
The voices there from the Los Angeles fires. Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview tonight, joined by the barrister and former government minister Anna Soubry and the political journalist Zoe Grunewald. Welcome and great to see both of you. Among the stories, we'll be discussing this on the front of the Metro about the worsening situation on the ground because of wildfires in LA. Its headline, though, lawless. Back with that and plenty more after this break.
Paris reverberated to the sights, sounds and smells of conflict. There's a focal point to all this anger, and that is Emmanuel Macron. I'm Adam Parsons.